This is breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. ChrisChan has been released from prison. For those of you who don't know, I did a 3.5-hour documentary on Chris's life, if you want to check that out. And for those that don't have the time to go through that very lengthy piece, I'm going to try and speed run a bit of the lore for you here. So ChrisChan is a content creator, I guess you could say. He got famous primarily from these cartoons that he would draw that got leaked online, which would eventually become a comic book series. I use that in the loosest sense of the term possible. The main character that kind of got him popular and brought him to infamy on the internet was this character that he created, allegedly, called Sonichu, which was a mixture of Pikachu and Sonic. So, you know, I don't know how much of the IP he could really claim on that. So 4chan and all these message boards would find out about ChrisChan, and then honestly he would very quickly become probably the most cyber-bullied person in the history of the internet and technology. Chris would become like one of the original lol cows because he had this like tendency to divulge his deepest, darkest secrets to the internet with no thought of the repercussions and the things that people might do with said information. And he was also very prone to freak out. He had a short temper. He would just go off without like even the littlest provocation. One such moment that stands out to me right off the bat is he was a content creator, right? So he was just doing a house tour, giving a tour of his home for his fans, if that's what you even want to call them. The majority of them were just trolls. And as you know, the house tour is going on, well, within like a couple seconds, you realize, oh, this person is legitimately like a hoarder. His house was a fire hazard. Spoilers, his house would burn down much later on. But in this instance, he gave this house tour. People were like, wow, this is legitimately a fire hazard. So they call, whatever, city council, whoever, the city. They call the city and tell them like, hey, you have a resident in this neighborhood that his house could very easily burn down and damage other houses because it's just filled with garbage. This would prompt like an investigation, and Chris and his elderly parents were almost kicked out of their home. So Chris's father asked Chris if he could take down the YouTube video that he had created giving the house tour. But of course, it's just been re-uploaded so many times. Chris's father's elderly, doesn't understand the permanence of the internet. And it just led to this really hilarious video where Chris is like screaming and yelling at people on the internet to take the video down or else without really giving any kind of threat.
This does not even deserve a captain's log introduction, because this is dead serious. The inside and outside tour I did a few months ago of my house, everyone on the internet, my mother and my father are angry at me. They're blaming at me. It's my fault. I admit it's my fault. I want everything about my house off the internet. I'll send in detectives. I'll send in police. I'll send in everything in my power to get it off the internet.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Shut that goddamn thing off. I don't care what you do. You get all that stuff off of there tonight.
I'm working on it.
Go work on it.
I am
Do
working.
you realize?
God, that's still one of my favorite videos in internet history. Chris is a high-functioning autistic as well. It's definitely something that, his trolls or his fans, let's call them, took advantage of on multiple occasions. He's also probably one of the horniest people that has ever lived. There were so many people that would pretend to be girls interested in having sexual relations with Chris, only to troll him and humiliate him by, having him show up at a date in public and them not being there, or them showing up in a pickle costume. He really hated pickles for whatever reason. And you would think by like girl number 30, he would figure this out, but he just keeps falling for the same stupid traps. That's how horny this person is.
Julie.
I think probably my favorite anime arc in Chris's life, because there is so many, it's actually ridiculous. There's a site called Sonichu.com that is basically an entire Wikipedia site just dedicated to this person's life, because there is everything this person did, everything that Chris did is like documented in one form or another. It's the most detailed site I've ever been on in my entire life. But my favorite anime arc in Chris's life, hands down, has to be the Liquid Chris saga. So this other guy rolls onto the scene who was also claiming to be ChrisChan. He would wear the exact same clothes and wear the exact same necklace and everything, and started remaking Chris's YouTube videos, like word for word impersonating Chris.
The video that was posted last night saying that I was of the wrong orientation.
This led to like a big divide between the fans. Most people just didn't know which Chris was the real Chris, so they started calling the original Chris Solid Chris, and then this one Liquid Chris, and then this would eventually lead to like a duel between the two to figure out who is the one and true only ChrisChan. Their weapon of choice for this duel was a singing competition. Both of them sucked at singing. And of course, the original ChrisChan lost and lost the rights to use the name ChrisChan, even though it was clearly the original. And then this person just stole his identity. It's fucking hilarious. Later in Chris's life, Chris would... I don't know a right way to put this. This is going to be a controversial opinion, I think, but was tricked into being transgender. I say that because it's very clear that Chris is autistic and gullible and lonely and so many other things. Very low IQ, most likely. Chris basically got trolled into believing that he was transgender, or he is transgender, whatever you want to call it, and would transition into being a woman. Now, I can understand that you might be feeling bad for Chris up until this point. I completely understand that. Clearly, this person was extremely bullied and taken advantage of. I understand that completely. I just want to make it very, very clear that Chris is not a good person, though. There has been many, many instances where he's had the chance to prove that. One such instance where he proved that he was not a good person was the time where he tried to drunkenly assassinate someone with his motor vehicle by trying to run them over, so to speak. It was a manager of a GameStop, and the reason why he tried to murder the manager of the GameStop was he was banned from that GameStop and all the local GameStops for being racist to a young black child. He was in his mid-30s at the time, so this isn't like a child that's been led astray by the internet. This is a full-grown adult human. Ironically, he was also homophobic and transphobic for like 90% of his life until he figured out that he can get attention for being trans. So I'm just throwing that out there as well. Not too long after Chris transitioned into being a woman, he would also have, I guess you can call it like a mental breakdown, so to speak. This was due to some very heavy trolling by like this group of trolls that, in my opinion, were completely reprehensible. Like, it's one thing to mess with someone, and it's all in good fun, like the Liquid Chris saga. But then it's like something else when you're like actually just trying to cause someone harm, which in this instance it was, and they took advantage of Chris being gullible and having a low IQ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the things I mentioned before, and essentially trained Chris into believing that there was this alternate reality where because he was obsessed with like cartoon characters and video games and all. So all those fictional characters would all actually really existed just in an alternate universe. And then that universe was going to merge with ours somehow. And he would be able to hang out with the likes of like Cloud Strife and Sephiroth and what have you. And during this period where Chris's brain just completely broke, this would also be around the time where Chris, again, not a good person, would start having sex, a sexual relationship, if you will, with his 80-year-old mother who had dementia. Chris was having sex with his 80-year-old dementia-ridden mother. This is what he went to jail for. He would eventually leak this to people online who would then tell the police. The police investigated, arrested him, and then he got thrown into prison for it. Chris has been in jail since 2021, I want to say. Maybe 2022? 2021. Pretty sure it's 2021. So again, as you can see, just 2 years later, Chris has been released. It's not been divulged or made public as to what the reason behind it is, but they have been bonded out of jail. And it says, due to the current status, updates on this record are no longer available. If you have any questions, please contact the facility. So Chris is free. I think it's only a matter of time before Chris makes their return back to the internet in some form, one or the other, whether that be YouTube or Twitch, etc., etc. Because, again, Chris is pretty low IQ, so I can't see Chris within the last 2 years have learning anything from the destructive path they had put themselves on for the first 40 years of their life. If you don't know the full story of Chris, it is very easy to feel sympathy for this individual because they were definitely harassed and abused and suffered, a lot of pain from the world just trying to put themselves out there. What you don't see if you don't look into Chris enough is that a lot of it was self-inflicted. Anyways, that's ChrisChan. I am going to be keeping my eyes on ChrisChan to see what they do next. If you want to get more Chris news, follow me here. Okay, bye.